DJs, Beers, DJs, Beers.
I want another one.
DJs, Beers, DJs, Beers, DJs, Beers,
DJs, Beers, DJs, Beers.
I want another one.
DJs, Beers, DJs.
The jingle is growing on me, David.
I want another one.
I was already singing.
Beers.
Welcome to another fun-filled episode of DJs
I
and
want
Beers.
another one.
DJs, Beers.
Hello, everyone. It is IPA day in the world, and we're at
Hey.
episode number 19. Welcome.
Oh, Green Flash. That's a good one, Ali.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're from San Diego. San Diego.
To be honest with you, I picked it because it said West Coast, and I
Yep.
figured you would know it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a West Coast IPA. Yeah, good one.
Chris, it's nice to have you back in your home environment.
And I'm not slowly fading away like last time.
No, but like,
I have electrical light.
I'm curious because last time I remember you briefed us and said that it's going to be difficult for you to stay on for any extended period of time. Yet you managed to come on just a few minutes after we started and stayed pretty much until a few minutes after we finished. So what was the conversation that riveting that you just felt like you couldn't break away? What happened?
I mean, first of all, I had everything charged to the max, so I knew I had enough energy out there. And then I didn't know what the circumstances are going to be, if it's going to be raining like crazy or whatever, That's why I didn't want to promise that I'm going to be on the show for the whole time. But the circumstances made it possible. But additionally, obviously, our show last week was filled with so much amazing information. I think I've learned so much about the industry, about management, that in one session that I've never done before, really. And I really felt like if some of you guys haven't watched the show from last week out there, and you're just kind of like, you want to know a little bit more about the music industry, you want to know a little bit more about what it means to have a manager and what a manager does, or what even if it comes down to streaming services or something, watch the show from last week. It was pretty amazing.
Also with the DJ promo stuff and a lot of very useful information, even stuff that I didn't really know. So yeah, very useful.
Packed really nicely together and delivered amazingly by Dean. Great.
Yeah.
I mean, we're obviously going to ask other managers out there to come on board, managers that have different backgrounds than Dean. Because I think every manager, one of my takeaways and having dealt with managers over my career and after chatting with Dean is like every manager has their own unique perspective on things and their own management style. And, that style really has to gel well with the artists that they're representing.
Yeah, gotta have a at least a connection.
Yeah,
I would think so anyway.
I think we should maybe start off on a serious tone, giving our support and, wishes to everyone in Beirut that's been affected by the that unbelievable accident. I guess they're calling it an accident, right?
Yeah, man. The videos are crazy. I feel like I see a new video every day from a different angle. It's just like, it's insane that how massive that was.
Yeah.
It was quite shocking. Yeah. I mean, all the friends from there that I've talked to, fortunately, are safe, but all of them told me that their homes are destroyed.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that's whether it was a direct hit from the blast or the shock waves that you could visually see in a lot of those videos.
Yeah.
It did some major damage, and
Lots of
I read
destruction.
today there's some 300,000 people that are displaced right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. When I first saw the video, I think I woke up, I was half asleep, and I watched it, and I thought it was like someone doing like a CG, like one of
That's what I
those
thought so too.
end of the world video movies, one of those like apocalyptic movies or something like that. And I was like, what? Wait, is that real? And then I had to Google it, and I was like, oh my God, that really happened.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How many
especially
tons? How many tons was it? 2,700 tons or something
about
like that.
750 tons or something like that.
It's
And
absolutely unreal.
you just compare that to the Timothy McVeigh bombing
That was
here in the
2 tons.
States, which was 2 tons.
Yeah.
And that took out a whole building.
And that took out but the
Wow.
damage was unbelievable. That the damage that caused. It's just, and all of them have told me that it's due to years of government incompetence and corruption.
Yeah, I think Nicole
And,
posted about it, and she said it pretty right. Like there's so much corruption going on in the government that these things just were possible that they can accumulate in that amount in a harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Chris, how was your show last week?
It was amazing. It was really good.
Yeah,
And I mean, we could, I think, use a whole show to discuss the matters of DJing during COVID times. And I think we should, maybe next week, or something like this. We should get some a good discourse going on with the ups and downs and the positives and negatives of going out there and DJing at these times. I think we all kind of have a similar approach to this. Obviously, that approach is evolving over the times. The more we learn about the virus, the more we learn about how different areas in the world deal with the virus, some better, some worse. And I have to say, my whole week in Switzerland last week felt extremely safe, although the rules are only masks are mandatory in public transports, not even in stores. They have hand disinfected basically on every corner, so it's taken seriously, but it's also not ruling their lives. I had the feeling being in Switzerland for a week; it just felt completely different. Although I have to say the Germans are getting used to the situation too, and everybody is calming down a little bit. Even though calming down means you still follow the instructions. But it's an easier process somehow, and the club gigs felt perfectly fine.
you did D Club and Supermarket
In
Zurich.
Supermarket, yes, and every guest is registered. Everything can be traced back. It's limited to 300 people, so it's a small crowd. And that's basically what they go with, and they're just like they're fine with it. They're working like this for over a month now already, and they haven't had any negative downsides so far. So
I think it might be a good idea to maybe invite Thierry from D Club on. So he's been putting on events during this time, and he can maybe help us gain more insight into how they're doing it from his perspective, as opposed to us talking to one another about the merits of playing or not.
Yeah.
Well, next week is just us, right? Is it with no guest next week? Or is that wrong?
So we decided, guys out there, we're just such a chaotic heap of whatever we're trying to be. So next week when we have sometimes shows with no guest, and we use the show to talk to each other and to basically answer your questions. And maybe that's a good idea to do that next week. Is everybody in for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Usually we don't discuss that on air.
I think we've also got a backlog of questions from previous shows that we need to go through.
Yeah.
Where are those? Are those on a master list somewhere? Or?
We're gonna have to compile them. So
I think the most resilient of them seem to post the same questions every single week, so they'll remind us.
yeah.
Well, on today's show, we have a very special guest, an old friend of mine, who, as I said in my post, is a legendary Detroit techno producer whose music really paved the way for my own. You know, he was in that group of incredible artists from Detroit's early years that really forged the path forward for a lot of us. He's made some unbelievable music over the years, and he's a really funny guy, and he's waiting in the background here, but we're going to bring him in now. He's
You
going to
make
bring
him sound really old now.
No, he's
Spring chicken.
yeah, he's no spring chicken, but he's not old either. So yeah, I wanted to.
I'm a summer swan.
Let's bring Kenny in. There he is.
Hi, Kenny.
How you doing? Hey, Matt. How you doing, sir?
Good man.
Yeah.
Hey, Kenny.
You're glowing. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Great.
Kenny, I think.
Mo, how are you, Mo?
I'm doing swell, man. How you been?
I'm doing over here. I'm doing.
Kenny,
Doing
I think you need to send Mo the Amazon link for your ring light, because it seems like he needs.
Yeah.
Bruh, this is all birth. This is all like from the. This is genetics. Yeah, Best Buy. They have the most amazing ring lights. You know, because I'm so dark that I have to be properly lit.
Yeah.
You know, anytime I'm in a club and people come, can we take a picture? I get so nervous because of the lighting. I'm like, you got to turn on the flash.
Turn on the flash.
You got to have
A flash
If there ain't
required
no
picture.
flash, you know, all you're gonna see is teeth. So like, let's do the flash and let's get it done right. So yeah, lighting is great.
So Kenny, you were born in Detroit.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody knows you live in LA now. Later you moved to LA. Was your first release the We Shall Overcome release on Plus 8? Was that the very first time that anyone heard you on Wax?
Yeah, that was it. Real quick, like I graduated from high school in 1986 in a suburb of Detroit. I was already into house music because it was on the radio. And actually, Terrence Parker, I went to high school with him. So he was passing around these DJ tapes in high school. So we already knew what house music was. So when I graduated from high school, I went to the Air Force in 86. Went to the Air Force and then came back home in 1988 and heard this weird sound in the clubs. And I was like, in Detroit. And I was like, what the hell is this? I knew it was electronic and but it was funky. It was different than the Kraftwerk that I was listening to before I had left. It had this funky blackness to it. And I met Richie Houghton in a club, the Shelter in downtown Detroit. And he was just beginning to spin there. And we kind of developed a friendship.
Richie Rich back then, I think, right?
I used to, well, I don't know if that was his, that was his official name, but I used to call him that all the time. I used to yell that on the dance floor, Richie Rich! It's a friend of mine. So we became really cool, and then that's how I was able to like release some music on Plus 8. So yeah, and then we used to drive around the city and listen to mix shows on the radio. We were like, what is this stuff? It's amazing. Oh, it's great. And it was this weird shit. It was Derek. Derek May had a mix show on the radio, and he was playing all this techno stuff. And it was the most, I can't even, people ask me like, what did it feel like to be in the background of this birth of a genre of music? I can't explain it. To try to put words to it, you can't do it, because it's one thing to know what house music was and it was coming out of Chicago, but to be in the backyard of this shit and to know that just a few miles down the street, Derek and Kevin and those guys were going to the Music Institute with some shit they just recorded out of their studio, and they were bumping it in the Music Institute, just like, the holy grail of techno. So it was just the most amazing time.
Did it feel like,
to answer your question, yes, that was my first release.
Did it feel like a musical revolution was happening in your backyard? Did it feel that way to you, being immersed in that environment, the way it did to all of us? I mean, I used to go to the record store, and I swear to God, like any record with a 313 area code on it, I'd buy.
Yeah.
It was that fanatical,
With the benefit of hindsight, you can look back and you could tell how amazing that was, right? Like you only have a few genres of music. You can count them on this many hands, right? So
Yeah.
to be a part of one of those, like, so to say that you knew what was going on as you were in it. Now I'm talking about me being on this as a fan, going to the clubs and discovering this new music, the City Club, Music Institute, the Shelter, like, and you heard it, like, and you knew it was, you were witnessing something, but you didn't know what the ramifications would be. Now, Derek and those guys, they had probably they had already started, you know, getting the recognition because you know Neil Russian came over and he discovered those guys and it was blowing up in Europe. But for me, coming home from the Air Force and coming right in at it had already started, but it still hadn't peaked. It was still going up, going out every single week and hitting all these clubs. I just, yeah.
When you were, yeah, I read in your Wikipedia page that you served in the military.
Yeah.
For a while before coming back to Detroit. Were you keeping tabs on what was happening back in Detroit musically when you were in the military?
That's what I'm saying. When I graduated from high school in 1986, I immediately went to the Air Force. I didn't know there was no techno then. Okay, what there was Mojo. I think
Electrifying Mojo. Yeah.
Electrifying Mojo was a DJ, a proper disc jockey on the radio in Detroit. And without this man, there would be no techno. I honestly believe that because he had a show that he was using to expose us to all these different styles of music in this one show. And that's really kind of odd and unusual because usually back in the day, you had a format and you stuck to it. He was all over the place. So he was the one who introduced us to Kraftwerk, to Jay Giles' band, Parliament Funkadelic. He's the one who actually broke Prince in Detroit. That's how important this guy was. So it was his inspiration that I went away, you know. Oh, and then also Jeff Mills had a mix show on the radio too. Before I went away to the service.
He was known as the Wizard on the radio.
The Wizard, yeah. Who?
Yeah.
The Wizard. That was his drop. Who? The Wizard. And and he was playing more hip. What do you call it? It was called. I don't know if it was called hip hop or it was. Yeah, it was hip hop. It was a hip hop show, and he was doing a lot of scratching and stuff like that. So, so I went away with that in my brain. I didn't know that I would come back now, and the reason why I got out of the Air Force, I was supposed to stay in there for 4 years. I only stayed 2 because I fucking hated it, and I wanted to do stand-up comedy, and
at what age did you did you gravitate towards stand-up comedy, or did you think that that's what you wanted to?
Honestly, I knew as a kid that I was funny. Okay, you can toot I'm tooting my own horn. I knew
we'll be the judge of that by the end of the show.
We'll be the judge of that. I knew I was funny. Okay. So my mom actually got my comedic sense from my mother. My mom was hilarious. So, I grew up and listened to Richard Pryor and watched Eddie Murphy on SNL. So that's during those years when he was on SNL, that's when I was like, I want to be a comic. So when I went away to the service, I was like, you know what, this is not for me. And I'll never forget it. I sent my mom a message. I sent her a letter in the mail. Can you believe that? That's how old we are, bruh. It was like I had to sit down and write a letter. Dear Mom, this is not for me. I'm getting the fuck out of the Air Force.
You wrote it with those hollow ink pens, right? You had to dip into
I use crap. I said, Mom, I don't want to do this. This is not me. I want to come back home and do stand-up comedy. Now, mind you, like Black mothers, like they would beat your ass if they heard that shit normally. Like, boy, you better keep your ass in the service, keep those benefits, blah, blah, blah. My mother was the opposite. Yeah. I was expecting her to get on she was like, go for it. I was like, are you serious? So she said, yeah. So I applied for this program in the Air Force to get out early and go back home. During that time, it took a few months to process it. During that time, my mother sent me all these letters. And in these letters were not, hi, son, how are you? We went to the park today. She was writing all this material for me to look over to see if I could get some jokes out of that. It was amazing. So I had this support from my mom, and I
Uh-oh.
went back to Detroit trying to be Eddie Murphy. I wanted to be the next Eddie Murphy, and I got there, and I actually started doing comedy for a hot minute, and got a normal job reading meters, and then that's when I started going out to the clubs, and it was like, "What's this?"
Did you?
So, and I've all go ahead.
Sorry, I was to say, did your mom like deep down want to be a comedian as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what she told me when she sent me the first letter, and when she gave me her blessing. She said, I always wanted to be, I still have the letters. They're saved somewhere. She said, I always wanted to be a comic. I always wanted to do it, but I was too afraid to do it.
Wow.
And I was like, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes because, like I said, it's hard to get the support. You know, people, Black communities, we like to put the fire under the ass of these kids to do something that's constructive and like, that's going to keep those benefits and, job security and all that kind of stuff. To like pursue creative things, like it takes a minute for them to get on board with that. Actually, and my father, may he rest in peace, he never really got on board with me doing music until years after I kind of had some success with the music. So,
what was
your
first?
Well, I'll just say, were you into music, making music or playing an instrument before you are releasing records, or is that came later?
As a kid, I was always able to, I had a little dinky toy keyboard, and I was always able to like listen to something on the radio. Now, I am not a musician. I would never try to paint myself as a musician. I was still always able, I have a good ear, right? So I was still always able to like peck out on a keyboard what I was hearing on the radio. And I never developed the chops where I could like play. I'm still in here in my studio surrounded by keyboards, and still 30 something years later, I still cannot play as a musician.
Damn you.
I'm not a musician, but I'm able to like piece together and put together and play enough to where I could put down what I'm trying to put down. Now, I've always like, as a kid, I played the cornet for a hot minute when I was in the 4th grade, and my mom spent all this money on this cornet, and she was like, "Boy, you better go play that cornet." And I was like, of course, as a kid, I don't want to play the cornet, and I stopped playing, and she got mad, and that was enough for the cornet. So, but that's where the music came, was me early in the 4th grade, expressing interest in that, and I quickly decided that like, if I were to be doing music, it would be playing something keyboard wise or whatever.
Sure.
I think
that sounds.
You're not a classically trained musician, but you are a musician. I mean, you've done what, 7 albums and a number of different.
Maybe a total. Here's the funny thing. Like, that's the funny thing. Like, 30 years, really, and I only have 7. Really, that's crazy.
I mean, a lot more prolific than.
Yeah, it's like people.
Yeah.
I'm the most slowest, non-efficient musician you will ever meet. And it's not me bragging about it. It's me accepting it. Some people can knock stuff out and go in the studio and just knock them out. I am the opposite. I am the antithesis of that.
I don't know. I'll arm wrestle you for that one, man.
Bruh, I don't know, bro. I think it's because I'm too hard on myself. I mean, a lot of people are like that, especially artists. Like you put so much pressure on yourself to do well, especially if you had something that was pretty popular earlier in your career. You freak yourself out by like going, okay, I don't want to do anything less than what that did as far, popularity wise.
Exactly.
So, I made the mistake of, like a lot of people, taking on too much work over the years, especially remix work, especially remixes. I've failed big time with, delivering on deadlines with other artists, and they've been mad at me, and I'm like, bruh, I'm sorry, I couldn't come up with it. Send me something else, and I'll try with it. And it's, some people are cool with it, and other people are like, you fucking asshole. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I give too much, and instead of like taking parts and using those parts to remix a song, I usually end up rewriting the whole fucking song. And for me, when I do that, I give a part of me away doing that.
Totally.
And it's a fine line that I have had to walk over for years, and I think that's kind of stunted my growth creatively with not only my output as a musician, as under my own names, but also with remixes. Like, you know, so okay. Anyway, I'm getting off philosophical. I'm sorry. I need to stay on
We
the
can
point.
we can talk about that one
Kenny,
remix. If you want, we can later. We can talk about.
Do you
that
see the pain in this face?
Kenny, what initially drove you to sign up for the Air Force? Like, what were you seeking, and what was that first day like?
My pops. I have a twin brother, and my dad was pretty successful in his field of work. He was in marketing, and so you know, that's people like, well, people wonder why I'm driving these sports. I like Porsches, right? So I'm a Porsche guy. It came from my dad. My dad had Porsches, like, so I would go to his house. My parents were separated when we were kids, but we got closer to him in high school, and I would go to his house out in the suburbs of Detroit just to drive this Porsche. It was a 944. It wasn't like the 911, but it was like a 944. So, anyways, he went to the service back in the day, and you know, he gave us the impression that he wanted to help us in his line of work. Only if you kind of followed in my footsteps by, like, you know, going to the Air Force, right? So that's mainly the reason why both my brother and myself went to the Air Force. We went in at the same time. I actually saw my brother in basic training while we were down there. Like, it was really weird. So yeah, he was the one.
Are you and Kelvin twins?
Yeah, bro.
Dude, I didn't know that you guys were twins.
Yeah, that's my boy. Yeah, I'm 4 minutes older. Obviously, but
Wow.
I'm 4 minutes older, and we are the close. We can't be any closer. Like, and you know, we have different personality traits, which is good because you can't have the same personality traits or you clash all the time. So I'm a little bit more hyper and type A, and he's more type B and more laid back, and it's just the perfect marriage of siblings. It's amazing.
I don't know why, but I don't know why I automatically assumed like he was your younger brother, but significantly younger for some reason.
Yeah. That's my heart. Like, he's amazing.
That's
You know,
awesome.
I was gonna say also, because you said you went into the military in '86, and you got out 2 years later. How does that work with, like, because I mean, early '90s was the Gulf War.
Yeah.
Were they like trying to get you to go, or was that completely like you're completely out of the military?
So he actually, we went at the same time. His job was a cop. I was repairing computers. Now, mind you, this is like back in these were old computers, and the computer, it was 2 meg of memory in this computer, and the memory took up the whole wall, right? So that's how archaic the computers were. So I actually troubleshot down to the component. Like, there was no swapping out of, like today you swap out a card, and you know, we had to troubleshoot down to the transistor and the resistor, and like, so we were in it like that. What was the question? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
No, I was just saying, because like the early '90s was the
right.
War.
So this is before the Gulf War, right? So this is '88. So you know, they had a program called Palace Chase, and what Palace Chase allowed you to do was you had to serve 2 years. I enlisted for 4, but you had with this program you had to serve 2 years of active service time, and I was in Florida, and then you would serve the remaining amount of your time back home in a reserve unit, right? So I had 2 years left, so I had to serve 4 years in the reserve, Air Force Reserves back in Detroit, but they had to give you the same job. So when I went back home to Selbridge Air Force Base and went to go register, they didn't have my job title, so they just let me the fuck. I was like, sweet. So I didn't have to serve. So I only served 2 years. My brother served 7 or 8, some shit like that.
Wow.
But I only had, I think, or it's maybe 6. But I only had to serve 2.
Oh, wow.
So that's that's how I avoided it. So they didn't call me back or anything when
That's
when
what I
that
thought.
stuff happened.
I thought they did that, even though you're out of the military, that somehow they can call you back at any point, and say, "Hey, we need you." And
Well,
you
they
have-
can, but they just didn't. I mean, my
okay.
job description wasn't the most. Actually, the funniest thing, the unit that I was serving in, that's exactly what they did. They deployed to all these like different. It was basically an air traffic control unit, and we would like deploy, and then we would be the the eyes and ears for the fighter jets or whatever. And
Hmm.
but they never called me back. They let me out. I wasn't gonna question them. Like, are you sure you don't?
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to right? Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, so I got lucky. I just got really. And my brother was like, "Well, shit, let me try this shit." And they were like, "Nah, bro. Only one person in. I think it was the rule was only one person can per family can take advantage of this Palace Chase program. So it served me well. So just imagine if I would have stayed in the 4 years, none of this, I would not be where I'm at right now. I wouldn't have been doing music. I would have, who knows what I've been doing, but it wouldn't have
Maybe
been.
been flying jets or something.
Yeah, right. I would love to. I love it, but bro, 3.5 million miles. But I don't even. You can't pay me to be a pilot right now. There's no way. It's like a
Top
big ass
Gun
bus
over
in
here.
the sky for me.
Top
Right?
Gun.
Yeah, it's just
Top
a
Gun
big ass
cartoon.
bus.
Kenny, was there anything that you took from your experience in the military that's still with you today? Like, did
Yeah.
anything really positive?
No. The only thing, no, there was nothing. There was not. I didn't spend enough time in the military to like instill any.
Yeah.
thing
Like you
that.
didn't learn discipline, how to be disciplined.
Hell no. No. That's what I'm saying. Like when I hit the 2 month, actually it was maybe a year and a half, and I was like, this is not for me. Put it this way, like the trade that they trained me for, the computer technician title, that took 8 months or however long it was. So after I got out of school, I went to Pensacola and then only served a short amount of time. Then I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this, so let me get out. So that there was not enough time to kind of develop this sense of duty and honor and all this stuff.
Yeah.
If it's your thing, it's your thing. But for me, it just wasn't my calling. And you can either sit in the situation and stay in it for years, and it could be anything. It could be a job title or marriage or whatever, or you could just cut the tie and get out and go and go, move on. So that's what I decided to do.
Which you did. Kenny, it's funny, but I don't recall really that we've ever probably met. Is that possible?
No, that is not true. We met. I'll tell you when we met. Can I see your fingers, by the way?
Kenny, by the way, has a very good memory.
Hey, Kenny, tell me.
Right. Let me see your fingers, Chris. Okay, I'm telling you. I'm telling you why I'm asking. I met you in Detroit.
I think I remember
at the
now.
Movement Festival. And
I
do you know
think
what
I
I'm about to
remember
say?
that. Yes, I know.
You saw me. My fingernails were painted black.
Yes.
And you said, "Oh, that's really cool. Maybe I should do that." And I was like, "Yeah, fucking do it, bro."
But do you consider
that's
this?
when we met.
Do you consider
A
this
hot
as
second.
a hot second? I say a hot second.
Yeah.
So it's so much nicer even to have you here and talk to you here, because I just learned we even share the same birth year. So we're the old farts on this show.
52.
That's yeah. And I really wanted to go back to where we left off, where you kind of got back from the army, because the great thing about this electronic music scene that has developed in the 80s somehow is that anyone of all these artists are all coming out of different backgrounds, different everything, you know. Like I grew up in a little German village and heard techno through a record store here, and you're coming from a complete different world over there in Detroit. How now that you went back to Detroit and you didn't learn an instrument, so many things that you just were telling about not learning instruments sounded awfully familiar to me, because I can relate very much to that. Although I have to say you've managed to do 7 albums in this time.
Is it 7 albums?
I mean,
I counted 7, bruh.
I trust Ali's assessment here. He counted
No.
7.
I think there's compilations of my older work that could maybe you can consider that. Okay, I did the one on Warp. I did the one on RNS. I did one on Carl's.
Let's talk about the one on Warp. That came out in 1990. In 1994, you, Kenny Larkin, were on Warp, an album.
That smile lighting up the room.
4 years after. So all the kids listening out there, 4 years after Kenny's debut on Plus 8, he's on Warp, one of the most legendary record labels of
Okay, Kenny, then please tell us now about how your first DJ gig went up till you released on Warp Records. Like, give us that time frame, please.
How about what kind of doors did your first release, We Shall Overcome, open?
I don't think it was okay. I'm going to be blunt and honest with you.
Wasn't their first DJ?
I don't think it was the first release on Plus 8 that opened the doors for me. The doors were open for me. I think it helped. It helped establish because it was a simple track. We should have. It was like a bit. I go back and I listen to that track and I'm like, I kind of cringe because it's so simple. I think when I left Plus 8 to start my own label in 1990, it was Art of Dance. I released this dark comedy War of the Worlds track. That's what and I licensed it to Transmat. That's the track that really kind of got the thing going for me. And that's when people started really listening, because it was a bit more complicated and it was a bit more intricate, the sound, right? So and Chris, like my first, I don't have a specific memory of the first gig, but I do have one of the first, which is with Carl. We went to Ghent together. Wait, what's the club in Ghent? Not Ghent. There's a club. It was huge in Belgium.
Fuse.
No. It was a smaller club.
Fuse. Oh,
No.
Decadence.
God, I forgot the name of
You're
the
talking
club.
about Belgium.
Cafe
Yeah.
d'Anvers.
It was there, and it was a horrible gig because it was before I was any good with beat matching. And
But hold on, so your DJing came way after your releasing, your first release?
Yeah. So that's how amazing that time was, because everything is opposite now. So you did music, dance, techno music, and then you would DJ to support your music. Now today it's opposite. Like the music is nothing. The music is like a fucking flyer to get. It's the weirdest thing how the music is not really what the focus is. Back in the day, I would do these tours. There would be tours set up to do this, to do these, press junkets, all these. It's nothing like that anyway. Anyways, yes. Yeah. So the music was the most important thing, and then the DJ thing started coming afterwards, and then I eventually got good with the DJing and the turntables and stuff. So, but honestly, like my love, it was more for the music, and it still is for the music, and
so Kenny, what year did you actually start making music? So you got back from being in the armed forces. So what happened then? I mean, did you have help with the setup or?
No, I was hanging out with Richie, and or either I was going over to his house, hanging out, and met his parents. And this is right at the beginning when he was DJing. He had some turntables at home, and his dad is this really amazing wizard, electronics wizard. So he was doing all this stuff for Richie. And it's funny because me and Richie bought an SH-101 together. So just imagine having to share. Like I'm in the suburb of Detroit, and he's over in Windsor in another fucking country, and we're trying to share this machine. That didn't go very well. So I think I bought a DX7 after that, and then that's where I started slowly getting into the gear. But nobody actually sat me down and said, "This is how you make music." And by the way, I hadn't met any of those guys from Detroit yet. Like when I met Richie in 89, 90 or whatever, I was not in that circle of Detroit guys doing the music. It was just, and actually the guys from Detroit, they had an attitude towards me. They were like, "Why is he going over hanging out with this white dude over there and we right here? What's going on with it?" And I was like, "Where are they? I don't know where they are." Like, I didn't know how to get in touch with them. It was before I had even gone to the Music Institute, which was the home of techno, right? So once, I slowly kind of got into the scene, that's when I met those guys. And Derek said to me, "Man, why you never come over here, man?" I was like, "Bro, I didn't know like where you live. Like, how do you do that?" Because apparently people were doing that with Derek. They would go over to his loft downtown and just show up at his loft, and he, being the mentor that he was at the time, would just take people under his wing and just like kind of mentor them. That's how he did with Carl and stuff like that. So I just didn't do that. My path was a little bit different. Did I answer a question? Or did I dance around it?
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris, are we following you to the bathroom?
No, California Ale or Helles? What shall I drink?
Oh wow.
I'm in my
California
third.
represent Cali for us.
I
Everybody-
got to
every-
represent Cali, do I?
Everybody's
Kenny-
got they, huh? You gonna ask me what kind of beer I'm drinking?
Yo, yeah, I don't even think you showed us.
It's an amazing. It's called Blah Blah. Blah Blah.
That's Starbucks.
Yeah, the star. We saw the Starbucks logo already.
I saw the
bro.
Starbucks logo.
And this is some special shit in LA. You know what I mean? You just got
Is that a lot? Is that a
Custom
latte?
shit.
You drinking a
This
latte?
is the black lager. It's grown here in the hills, the hops and the barley. And they add some mayonnaise and some eggs, and you stir it up, and they charge $85 for this shit. You know what I mean?
So Kenny,
I don't drink. For the people like that, listen, I don't drink. So I drink. So occasionally, I'll have a glass of red wine, but like half a glass, and I'm knocked out. Or I drink it when I'm on a plane. If I'm taking a flight from LA to Europe, I have a little bit of wine, and it knocks me out. But other than that, I don't drink. I don't like beer. So sorry to.
I think I made you drink some sake when we were dinner that one time.
Some sake, yeah. You made
Sake.
me drink some sake.
You're actually the first guest on our show who says I don't like beer.
I do not like beer. It makes my stomach hot. I just never got. I've tried it, but I've never liked it. As a kid, like I tried it and my stomach was hot. I had all these things stopping me from doing things like drinking or smoking when I was a kid. I had like for drugs. I never wanted to get into drugs because I had family members who were doing that thing and they either died or so I had that and I was like, I don't want to do that. And then the same with drinking. I drank a beer one time before I went to school. I was in elementary school. It was like really young and it made me sick. And so that put me off the drinking and I just never got into smoking. So I just don't. No, sorry, I'm not sorry. Fuck y'all.
Straight edge to the bone.
Kenny,
Jeez.
going back
Way to
to
go.
your Art of Dance release that you released it and then licensed it to Transmat, or
Yeah, everybody heard War of the World.
That's it.
Yeah, so I pressed up a few hundred copies, and it was white label, and it was on this transparent vinyl. That's when shit was special. Back in the day when you would go to a record store.
I think I still have it.
See, and I don't even have it. And I was doing a few posts of my earlier stuff on my social media channels, and people were coming out of the woodwork. Yo, I got 10 copies. I'm like, are you serious? I don't have that one copy of this stuff. So yeah, I pressed up a few hundred copies of it, and somehow Derek got a hold of it, and he was like, "Bro, you gotta let me put this on Transmat." And of course, I'm like, "Of course."
So that's how Derek heard it. Like you didn't send it to him. You guys were
no.
friends. And then he heard it. He was like blown away. I'm sure.
No. So that's what got him. That's what put me on the radar with him. Basically, even though people knew who I was in Detroit, they just knew I'm the black dude that's with Richie on Plus 8. Why is the brother over there in Windsor? Like, what? Bring it over here. So I was on the map, but I wasn't, in their circle. So that's what opened the door for me to go over there. On Gratiot, which is the street where Derek, that whole block is famous for being, techno boulevard or avenue, whatever you want to call it. That's where Derek lives. And right next to that was Kevin Saunderson's recording studio. Like that's where the heart of techno was. So I ended up finally going over there. And that's, that's
was that the record that you would say sort of broke you globally?
Globally.
Once it came out on Transmat.
Well, globally, yeah, because I mean, even though the Plus 8 thing was okay, it wasn't like I said, it was like a very simple record. It's not really that much going on with it. But that's what got the idea. That's what got the attention, to answer your question earlier, of Warp. That's when they were like, "Yo, and the story behind that is, I actually approached them. I sent them an email and I said, "Hi, my name is Kenny Larkin, and I'm from Detroit, and I do techno music." And they were like, "Bro, we know who you are." and I said, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to do that." And they were like, "Of course." So I actually negotiated.
That was still with handwritten letters, right?
Fax.
Was that
Fax?
It was fax. Yeah, it was a fax. Yeah, for sure, it was a fax. And yeah, they got down with it, and I negotiated my own deal.
Kenny, did you
And,
have the album done and you went to him and said, I have this
Mm-mm.
album, or
No,
it was
no,
pretty much like they commissioned the album?
it was there. They commissioned it. They sent me in advance, and apparently I have a good head for doing deals because all my music, even my label, Art of Dance, is what I consider a phantom label. Like I don't really release a lot of shit on it. It's specifically just for I can license my music to another label and then get the rights back, right? So that's basically what happened. So I licensed my project, the album, to Warp for a certain amount of years, and then I got the rights back. Same with RNS, same with Planet D. So that's how I've been doing business for. So now I'm sitting on all my music and all my rights and publishing and stuff.
That's amazing.
And,
That's pretty
Yeah.
smart.
And
Yeah,
your RNS record album
Mm.
came out a year later. How were you so prolific?
Oh, but you've kind of skipped over the most amazingly difficult time in my life. That's the year I got shot in Detroit. In the
I was
suburbs of
gonna
Detroit.
get to that, yeah, but I figured
Yeah,
you
I got shot. I got shot in '94, not in the city. Everybody thought I was in the ghetto. He was in the ghetto. No, I was in a white, wealthy suburb in Detroit, and somebody knocked on my door at midnight. I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" And I went to the door, opened the door, they shot me, basically.
Wow.
And it was pretty crazy because I just got back from Europe that day. I was in Germany for the weekend.
Were you in
And,
your were you living at home, or you had your own place, or
Yeah, I was in a house. I was in a house in Birmingham, which is a bougie neighborhood. And okay, the short lead up to that is before I left, there was this guy going around raping women in this area. Like it was big news, right? Oh, this guy. So I said to my girlfriend at the time that I was living with, I said, we need to get a gun because she was afraid to stay in the house while I was on the road. So we went to the police station. This is 2 weeks before the shooting. We went to the police station and said, we want to get a gun. They said, why? And we said, well, because there's this guy going around raping women, like, and I'm on the road, blah, blah, blah. And they said, okay, cool. Get a gun and teach her how to use it. And then, and so we both went to target practice at this gun range.
that's how easy it is to get a gun in America.
That's how it was. It's like that. Bam.
You can go to the
It's
cops,
that
be
simple.
like, "Yo, I need a gun,"
Right. Yeah.
and they'll be
So,
like, "Yeah, go for it, bro."
Do that shit, man. And I bought the gun at the same place where the target range was. And I didn't know shit about guns. Like, so we both were taking lessons. Cow, and none of this side shit. Like so a few days we did that. And over the next week and a half, I was having all these nightmares, right? And I was having nightmares because my girlfriend every night she would wake up in the middle of the night, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. She would get up and she would go to the bathroom. Now, everybody has these sleep cycles where they're deep sleep, the deep REM, and then they wake up and they have to. So when she would do that, I always thought somebody was breaking in the house. So now add in this gun. I was having this nightmare that I was going to end up shooting this girl because I'm thinking that she would be some person breaking into the house. So I said to her, Debbie, we have to get rid of this gun because I'm terrified I'm going to shoot you like in the middle of the night. I don't want to do that. So she agreed, and a day or two before I was supposed to go to Europe, I was supposed to sell this gun, and I just did not get around to it. It was too much shit to do. So I ended up leaving for the weekend, came back, went to Best Buy, bought a stupid stereo, went home, and then got in bed. We were watching Seinfeld at 11:30 at night, and somebody knocked on the door. And I said, who the fuck is that? We never invited people over because people sometimes they're a bit envious of your success. So I was always a little bit scared to do that. So we were shocked that somebody would be knocking on the door. So I went to the door and said, who is it? And the guy said, Charles from down the street. And I was like, ain't no Charles from down the... First of all, there's no Charles from down the street. Second of all, the dude is black. There's not a lot of black people in this area. So my fucking red flag went up. So I went back to the bedroom got this gun that I just bought and that I was supposed to sell a few days ago. Went to the door and I asked again, like, who is it? And he said, Charles. And I looked out of the window and I was like a dumbass. Like, I grew up in Detroit. I know I should know better. You don't open the door, no matter where you live. Because I had this false sense of security living in the suburbs and, oh, nothing's gonna happen here. Like a dumbass, I just opened the fucking door. And I had this gun behind my back as I opened the door. And I opened the door, and as soon as I opened the door, there was this black dude standing in the door. And I looked at his eyes, and you could tell his pupils were dilated, like they were like this. They were so big. I could tell he was fucked up on something. And the moment I registered his look, somebody ran from behind the tree in the front of the yard, and I immediately knew something was about to happen because I heard it, all the leaves kind of rustling, and I kind of stepped back, I don't know, 5-10 feet with this gun down by my side with the light from the hallway shining on this gun, which is important in the story. And this fat black dude was running full speed towards the door. And he right when he saw me and he was in the door frame, he just pulled the trigger. And it's because he saw this gun in my hand. So when he pulled the trigger and I felt the bullet go through, which I really didn't feel because I was in shock at the moment, I held my gun up and pulled the trigger, and they ran. And like a dumbass, I forgot to put a racket or put a chamber in the round, whatever the fuck you call it. I forgot to do that. And so I ran to the door and shot outside like a dumbass. I could have killed somebody. So they knew that I had a gun, right? And so I closed the door. And then the police came, and everybody in my neighborhood, they were like, "Oh, he's a drug dealer anyway. He's there all the time. He goes away on the weekend. Who is this guy? He's yeah." So I stuck out, and people didn't like. So everybody called the police, and the police came, and they said, "Who shot you?" And I said, "I don't know. 2 black dudes. One was fat, one was skinny." And they initially they knew, they were like, he's lying. So they thought that it was this big crazy drug deal that went down. And I didn't know that there was actually, they both were shooting. I had no idea they both were shooting, because when the fat black dude came in the picture in the frame of the door, the little skinny guy was actually shooting too. I hadn't, but because whatever comes into the frame of picture, you zoom in on that and you get this tunnel vision and this flash of this, what was discovered, a 357 muzzle flash from his gun, kind of blinded me to the other guy. There was a bullet hole in the kitchen. Wow. So that's why they thought there was like all this gunfire and shit. So I was really lucky. They took me to the hospital. I knew I wasn't going to die, and maybe that helped me out a bit. Right after the bullet, when I shut the door, went to the bedroom and said, "Debbie, call the police. I got shot." She's like, "No, you didn't." And I showed her. I was like, "Didn't you hear the gunshots, bitch?" She's like, "Look."
You got shot in the,
bitch,
got shot in the abdomen, right? You got shot in the abdomen.
Shot. Where?
Yeah, in the abdomen. And
it just happened to miss any vital organs.
No, yes and no. But the surgery, I was not supposed to make it out of the surgery. So I was in surgery for 12 hours, something like that. It was a really crazy, they did all this exploratory surgery. So I had this huge scar on my stomach where they had to open me up and do all this exploratory surgery. So they had to take out like 5 feet of intestines out, like the small intestine. They fractured my hip bone, and they took out either my spleen or my appendix. I don't recall. But the funny thing, I was only in the hospital for a week. I was really lucky that I didn't die.
They shot Kenny.
Oh my God! So
I don't think there's anything scarier than a home invasion. I mean,
oh my God,
dude.
And
that's your home. Like
that's my
somebody.
home.
It's one thing, being out somewhere, but somebody come into your home. It's just a whole nother level of.
Was that at all solved then? Did they find?
So
these
they did
guys?
So the cops did the investigation. I mean, background, and they did everything. They found out I was the most nerdiest, squarest dude. I didn't even drink coffee back then. I mean, I had no enemies, no drugs. My buddies were like the guys from Detroit, lived downtown, like nothing. So they were like, it was either somebody that knows you and knows what you have in your house. I had a studio in my house at the time. And they said, well, no, there was no or. They said it was somebody who knows you. And that's usually what happens with home invasions. It's somebody who knows you. They know what you have in the house. They know when you're there and when you're not there. So and they never caught the two people that did it. Now, I have a suspicion of who did it. And I actually went to the cops and told them. And they said to me, well, if you can't make a 100% ID, then we can't arrest these guys. And to be in that position to like have the power to say, I think it was these guys, and not be sure of it. I didn't want to rely on that and fuck these guys' lives up. So, okay. So that happened right before the RNS album came out. And it was quite remarkable because when I went to the hospital and I was recovering, that was right when the internet started blowing up. And people from all over the world found out about the shooting. And they sent all these flowers to the hospital. And I was in the hospital under an assumed name. And all these flowers were in the hallway of the hospital. It was amazing. So after that, I had to do. Everybody wanted to do the interview. Even because we had this, the album was scheduled to come out. They scheduled the press tour before the shooting happened. So this shooting just coincided with after me getting out of the hospital. Like 2 weeks later, I was on the road touring, supporting this album, and doing all this press and all this kind of stuff. So it was a really weird, wacky, crazy time because. Yeah, people wanted to know about the music, but they wanted to know about the shooting. Shit, what happened? How'd you get shot? So it was more about the shooting than it was about the album. But that's life.
That's terrifying.
Was the music all written before?
Yeah.
Or was it
that's
all?
What I'm saying. The release date was already settled. The release date for the RNS album was already planned, and the tour was already planned to do. And so they asked me, like, do you want to do this tour still? I was like, yeah, fuck it. So I went on this tour, and I was strange. People asked me, like, okay, are you still affected by it, like emotionally? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to kind of do the self-evaluation of yourself, like that kind of. I don't feel like there's like these mental scars or like these. Crazy psychological issues with black guys. I don't think I have that. I never had this. I had one breakdown in Belgium on this tour that I was talking about. I was by myself. I'll never forget. I was in the bed, like, and for some reason, I just started bawling, like, thank you, God, for giving me another chance. And that was the only time that I've ever, like, had a discussion with God and thanked him for giving me another chance. And since then, I just kind of had to, because they didn't catch the guys, a lot of people would be afraid, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to live that way. So I had to take that pain and all that shit, put it in a box and actually forgave the guys. I forgave them in the hospital. And I said, I don't want to go around life and be mad and be one of those people that's not experienced life to the fullest. So I actually forgave them and put it away. And the only scar that I have in my mind now, probably some psychologists would tell you, bro, you have PTSD. I probably do. But the only scars that I can see are the physical scars, which is this big ass scar on my stomach.
Wow.
I'm all deep and shit. I'm sorry, bro. Like, I'm brought down the tone and shit.
It's all good.
Kenny, how did you remember the sprinter without the legs, Oscar Petraeus, who shot his girlfriend?
How did I remember him?
It was intruders. No, I mean, but did that trigger those old memories of that conversation that you had with your girlfriend?
No, I think that was a different situation. He was crazy anyway. That dude, he was
he was
had all these.
So yeah.
Well, man, had all these guns. He was like trying to be all macho and shit, like with guns. Like I don't like guns. Who wants to live like that? It's unfortunate that we live in a society, right? That we have to you don't have to. But we're surrounded by guns. And if you're in the profession that a lot of people want your shit, do you not protect yourself or do you protect yourself? It's this double-edged sword that we have to deal with as Americans. Like, you know, do you want to be a victim? Okay, so the cop said to me, well, you got shot because you had a gun. And I said, okay, that might be true, but I guarantee you that I would want to have that gun every single fucking time, because just imagine if I would have sold that fucking gun. They didn't have on masks. The motherfuckers would have killed me. They would have, granted, I probably wouldn't have opened the door. Like, you know, who opens the door to a black dude at night, at midnight, without so maybe this fucking gun gave me some cocky sense of security. Yeah, but if I hadn't had that gun, those guys would have finished me off. They came to the house for the gear. And me and my girlfriend were in there, they would have finished us off, especially they didn't have on masks. So I think, yeah, a lot of times people get in situations where they do have this protection, and it actually gets turned around on them. Especially, I don't want to. I hope this is not sexist, but especially women in that situation, you know, they get in situations where the gun is used against them. So, so now, you know, that was the time when I said to myself, you know what, I don't want to have a studio in my house anymore. I don't want to die over a fucking keyboard. Like, I'll put a studio outside the house. And then I started doing that, like building studios. Like, I put the studio after the shooting, like I put the studio outside the house, and then I actually built that studio in Birmingham, a bigger studio. And but the funny thing is, I still had this protection in the studio. Like, I just didn't want to be without a gun in the studio, because I heard some horror stories about a few hip hop artists, and there was a techno artist from Detroit who I believe was killed because people came to his studio under the guise of like, yo, I want to record in the studio, like, and you know, and they killed him. They for the gear. Like, so I didn't want to end up like that.
Kenny, was that your first tour of Europe around this time, or had you gone?
No. That was, the shooting was in '94. I was in Europe in '91 with Carl at Cafe d'Anvers, you know, train wrecking. And she was in the drive.
When you did that tour around the album, were you playing live or were you DJing?
No. It was strictly DJing.
Have you ever played live? Your music?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I actually played live in Tokyo back mid '90s. It was the Azimuth stuff. And that was the first time I had sushi and got sick in Tokyo. Like, really? So I had to like eat McDonald's the whole time I was in Tokyo. That's the thing that sticks with me, not the tour, not the live show. But yeah, like lately, the last few years, I actually, because of Ableton Live, it kind of freed me up and allowed me to do some lives. Actually, I wouldn't mind performing live more than the DJing now, because the live shows are a bit more special than who's not a DJ. My mom's a DJ. Did I tell you? She got like 4 decks. No, I'm kidding.
Kenny, when you came to Europe when you were doing the tours for RNS, did you come and stay in Europe, or were you flying back and forth? Were you doing like weekends, or were you just?
Oh, thank you, Mo. Did you?
Oh, sorry.
Yawn on me,
my bad, man. This is a rough night.
What was a kid?
Rough night.
Yeah, I would do depending on the tour. Like, if it was just a weekend, no, I wouldn't stay. But if it was 2 weekends or 3 weekends, yeah, I would do that. And I still do that. Like, if I'm doing like a DJ tour in Europe, like I'd stay in Berlin for a few weeks at a time. Especially like moving out to LA. Everybody's like, why the hell would you move to LA and increase your like travel times, like, double whatever? And I'm like, well, because I like the palm trees and shit. So, but yeah, like, to cut down on the wear and tear of my body, like, if I can do a tour in Europe, yeah, I'll stay in Europe for a few weeks.
Yeah.
What was your impression of Europe when you first started to go over in comparison to the scene in America? Obviously, the scene got off to a very late start in the States, even though there was a lot of artists in America who influenced the European sound. Like, dance music culture was, I would say, like, 10 years ahead of in Europe. It was 10 years ahead of us in the States.
Yeah.
Did you feel that the Europeans appreciated or understood your sound
Oh yeah.
more, and there was more of a culture there, more of an outlet for you to perform and be who you are as a musician.
Well, yeah, that's not only in this genre, but it was also the same for jazz artists. Like
Yeah.
that's where they got most of the respect, right?
Yeah.
That's where like so, and it's I think it's still like that to this day. I mean,
That
the
was going to be
music
my
has-
next question. Do you feel like it's still like that? Like,
Oh, for
the
sure.
US is still
Absolutely.
behind. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm talking about like I'm not talking about popularity wise with dance music, EDM, whatever. I'm talking about just like on a critical level, on the artistic, creative level. These people don't know who we are. Some people know who we are. I mean, is it important to know the history? I think so, but other people may not think it's important to know where the music came from. And then I just posted something. Was that yesterday or 2 days ago? Oh, did you guys see this thing I sent to Elon Musk? Yeah,
I
he's
saw
like,
that.
oh, anybody know any good techno? I was like, bruh, you might want to do a little history. So I posted like in a Tesla, like a track. And I was like, yo, like this is a great track. You need to, use this. So like people like that, they're coming into the scene and they have this limited view or this idea about what dance music is or what EDM is, and and who's involved in it and where the roots are. I don't think it's anybody's position from Detroit that we created electronic music. Hell no, that is not what we did. We didn't create electronic music. We were listening to electronic music, Kraftwerk, Parliament Funkadelic, all those electronic. Like we were, of course, we didn't create electronic music, but there wasn't many people using 808s and 909s before that. Like and injecting this funky sound that was missing, not missing. That wasn't a part of what we were listening to. Even Kraftwerk had their sound, but I wouldn't say it was a funky sound. It's not funky. What came out of Detroit was more of a funky sound. And generations, how many generations is it now? Like, I don't know, decades later, the music has transformed into what it's transformed in. You put art out there, it's gonna do what it's gonna do. You don't have control of that shit. It's gonna morph into wherever it's like an amoeba. It just like kind of just does its thing. But I still think it's important that people know, like, there's some history behind it. And it's some interesting history. I don't know if a lot of people know about what those guys did behind the scenes to create techno, but somebody needs to do a movie about this.
Well, isn't there a documentary called "Give 'Em Drum Machines"? Is it
There's a lot of
out?
documentaries. I want a movie. I want a fucking movie based on the fact, based on like what was that thing that Zac Efron did? That piece of shit.
Oh
movie?
God, We Are Your Friends.
And it was right. And I didn't see it, but it was the biggest flop for them. It made
It's
nothing.
terrible. I saw it.
Okay. So I want somebody to put. I want to send Elon a fucking message and say, "Yo, bro, give me some money so we can do a movie about the real story behind techno, just like Eazy-E and those guys, NWA movie.
That was a great movie.
That shit would be the bomb, because I'm telling you, if y'all know what I know about the roots of techno and what happened behind the scenes, y'all, it's a movie. It's a movie, and I'm not. They can fade out at the end of when the shit takes off. That's not where the story is. The story is before that shit and what got them there, and it's amazing. So hopefully one day somebody will be interested enough and tell that story.
You just got to pitch it to the right executive, man.
Say you live in LA, man. We're in the home.
Okay.
Home
All right, check it out.
Write a script,
so
man.
I'm gonna leave the names out of this, but I do have a story. I have a friend out here who's he was in the studio. He's an attorney, entertainment lawyer, and he was at a huge studio. We were pitching a show, a TV show about DJs. We put together a whole reel or sizzle reel or whatever you want to call it, and we had Derek in it. Derek was the face of this, the focus of this reel. And Derek sent me all these tapes of him on his travels, and I forgot the name of the show, what we were going to call the show, but it wasn't just only about DJing. Actually, it wasn't even about DJing, like going to the clubs and seeing people fuck. That gets tired, like in 15 seconds. Okay, people are going crazy. It's everything that the DJ is doing up until that. It's almost like Anthony Bourdain DJ style, right? So him experiencing all the cultures and that. So the whole idea was like you would have a different DJ every season or blah, blah, blah. Anyways, my friend who was working at this company, I'm not going to say the name because it's huge, and I don't know if he wants me to say the name. He had this treatment, or whatever you want to call it, on his desk. His boss walked into his office, picked up this thing off his desk without even asking him, and started looking through this and reading it. And my friend was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Okay, so there's basically an unwritten rule that you can't shop your own projects at a place where you work. That's like, you can't do that. So, but he still like picked up this thing and started going through this and saying, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Pointing to Derek. And then my friend started to explain to him about, quick, dirty history about what the whole thing was about. And the guy said, "This is not going to work because there's a black guy attached to this. And nobody's going to buy
what?
Because there's a black guy attached to it.
Oh, get out of here.
And nobody's going to believe this shit." And this is like the studio head of this big studio company.
When was that? When did that happen?
Maybe 10 years ago, maybe.
Do you think that changed a little since?
Well, let me add to that. Your record in 1990 sampled Martin Luther King. It's well over 50 years since Martin Luther King was assassinated. It's 20 years since you released that record. And here we are in this day and age.
30 years.
30 years, yeah. Here we are in this day and age where we're still having this discussion about racial and systemic inequality. What's wrong with this country? Why are they there? It's almost as if they don't want to look in the mirror and acknowledge what they're seeing in the reflection. And the only way to get past that, it seems like, is to do just that. And what is wrong with it? Like, why can't we progress?
But has anything changed in the 10 years now since, do you think?
I mean, do you think, Chris? look at.
I've had my own really bad experiences with racism. It's only been a few, but it's been crazy enough to where it would shake. My first Porsche, I bought it in 1998. It was like a speed yellow 911 wide body. I was driving in Detroit on the way somewhere, and I was getting off the highway, and this guy apparently thought I cut him off. So I exited the highway, so did he. He followed me. He pulled up alongside of me. "You fucking nigger, you fucking cut me off, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, whoa, what the fuck? So he just went in on me. And I was like, "I didn't cut you off. What the fuck are you talking about?" So he was just going. And then I started laughing because it was so shocking to hear this coming from a person. And that up until that time, I had never experienced this kind of stuff. So he was going on me. And I just started laughing. And then I pulled off because the light turned green, and he kept following me. And each time we would pull up to a traffic light, he would go at me, go with the N-word. And I was like, "Bro, you got to come with something better. That doesn't offend me. Like, that's nothing to me. You're not really doing anything to me."
Yeah.
He wasn't getting the reaction that he thought he should get from me, right? I wasn't like going crazy. "You're just a fucking drug dealer. You fucking, that's how you bought that car, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Why is this guy following me?" So we got to the last traffic light, and then I rolled up my window. He got so mad that he jumped out of the car, and he ran around to the driver's side of my car, and he started swinging on me.
Wow.
And like a dumbass, he didn't realize he was swinging on me in front of a police station. So I went to the police, and I got his driver's license, blah, blah, blah. and I filed a complaint. This motherfucker was a neurosurgeon. Can you imagine this guy having these kind of beliefs and ideas and operating on people of color? It blew my mind. So that like tells you like it's not just, you know, rednecks. No, it's systemic. It's all throughout everything, and it's not some new thing. It's like, you know, we barely been able to keep it under the radar for a while, but you know, I think, you know, because this might not be a popular opinion, but I think what made it really come to the forefront is electing Obama, because they were so mad that they had this black president that they had to do whatever they could to get this guy out of there. And then when Trump came in and he spouted all this shit, that's the Messiah. Like, so they're just letting go, and it's coming from all levels of socioeconomic levels, and like it's unreal. And I think it's going to get really scary towards the election, the closer we get to it, because he's going to try to stay in, and people are going to protest, and it's going to be right. It's going to be so bad. But I'm an optimistic person, and I pray that the people will. I hope we can get past it, because this is some scary shit. This is not we didn't have to. My ex-wife was from Macedonia, and I used to go to Macedonia and see all the crazy shit that was going on in their government and with the politicians and all the dirty shit. And I was like, y'all shit is fucked up. Thank God I'm from, you know, and look where we are right now.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That's your story actually triggered a memory. When I was in high school, I had a really close friend of mine. His name was Damien. He was a black kid, and he was a skater kid. We used to skate with each other all over the street. He got his driver's license when he was, I don't know, 17 or whatever. And he was driving down the street, and he cut off a guy, very similar to your story. He cut off some white guy, and the guy got out of the car and was yelling all this racial profanity at him. And the guy reached in, because his window was rolled down, and punched him in the side of the head. And that was the end of the altercation. Basically, my friend Damien drove home, told his mom when he got home, I accidentally cut this guy off in the street, and he started yelling at me. He punched me in the side of the head, and his mom's like, well, I'm glad you're okay. Just go to bed and get some rest. The kid went to sleep. He never woke up again.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that happened when I was 17 years old in high school, and it traumatized me, because we were super close. And I think that whole road rage thing is always kind of triggered for me.
So we're one. People of color are one incident away from something going so wrong, and having and it could light up just like that, and things could be changed forever. And it's the scariest thing. And it doesn't matter, you know. I did this post. It doesn't matter how much money you have as a person of color. It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity. You can get the most racist cop who gets off on the fact that you're driving this Bentley, or you're fucking whoever, and giving you a hard fucking time and waiting on you to do something to give them an opportunity to take you down a peg or two, and things can go wrong. It's the scary, and it's the most, as a black man, it's the most scariest. And thank God I've been knocking on wood. You know, I've never had to deal with, apart from that dude who pulled up on me and started swinging on me. I've never had to deal with the driving while black thing, right? Because I've had these cars for years, and I've never had to deal with that, right? So, but it could be anywhere. You could go into a grocery store and whatever. Like, it's that simple, and it's that easy, where it could like change your life forever. And I think, you know, the only way we can deal with like all this stuff is people that are white. They can try to tell people around them that are in their lives like why they shouldn't be that way. I mean, you can preach to them, but like, what else do you have? You can't force somebody to like you. You can't force these people to see your side. You can't force them to say, okay, that guy, he's equal to you. You can't force them, but you can try to tell them, like, you know, look, you've never been around people are different than you, so I understand the confusion and the misunderstandings or the what you think about somebody. But if you kind of go outside your bubble, and it's hard to do that if you're in the rural area, you're not going to be able to go around black people or whatever. But that's where, like, one of the places you need to start is like these people need to say, like, it's nice to be diverse. Why? Who would want to live in a country where there's like all the same, and like who wants to do that?
Absolutely.
I don't get it either. I don't get it either.
Kenny, I'm sure you read Kevin Saunderson's
Yeah.
interview with Billboard. He raised a lot of interesting points. Putting aside the experience your friend had with that movie idea, and this, this road rage kind of incident that happened with you, racial road rage. Did you ever, over the span of your career, feel discriminated against within our industry, within the music industry?
No. I've always not wanted to be on the road nonstop. So I've done things during my career to kind of prevent that. Like, I've never had a manager. I've never tried to push myself really hard. I've never had PR. I always wanted to kind of, because y'all be on the road and y'all like to do that. I like to be at home, and to be in the studio. I prefer to be in the studio. So,
I share that sentiment.
Right. So, but I've never felt like, because I've done a few really nice deals with these record labels, and I didn't feel, and I'm assuming because they were European, and then they've already had the respect was already built in before I approached them and we're doing these deals. So I didn't have to deal with that. Like Kevin, like him with his inner city name, like they didn't know what to classify his music as when he was they were trying to break him in the States. They tried to lump him with R&B. Yeah. And he was like, I'm not R&B. This is not R&B. They didn't know how to deal with him as an artist. And they still probably wouldn't know. And I think a lot of labels still wouldn't know, US labels still wouldn't know maybe because EDM is so huge, they would probably lump you under that umbrella of EDM. Yeah. But personally, no, I haven't had to do. Kevin probably would be the person out of all of us because he had so much commercial success with Inner City. To experience it on that level. Like I'm just an underground dude who just
talking about
an incredible movie though.
Talking about Kevin, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, Kevin, so you say you love being in the studio. So during the lockdown, I mean, so have you been making a lot of music? I mean,
what I'm doing now, like I said, I'm notorious for taking a long time to do music. It's just keeping my chops together right now.
Right.
Like if you work out and you have a nice body, you want to keep working it out. So I'm just trying to, and it's not really, I'm not working with a destination in mind right now because honestly, like the world's on fire right now. I don't know too many people who could be super creative and come out with some banging shit. Maybe if I was a lyricist or I could, if I was singing, you could come up with some creative. But for me, like it's a feeling thing. I'm inspired by my surroundings and what's going on around me. And if there's a lot of shit going on around me, which it is right now, it's really hard to stay inspired. Like right now, I'm doing some sound design for a synth that's coming out. That's going to be announced soon. And even that's super hard for me because it's really hard to like every day turn on the TV and you see this stuff and it's like you're consumed with it. So, I wish I was strong enough to like turn off that stuff. But it's like if I turn, it's like a car accident. You don't want to look away. It's like this morbid curiosity. You have to like listen to every fucking thing that's going on because you don't want to miss it. Because something big is going to happen, even though something big happened yesterday. It's going to be twice as big today. So I'm kind of caught in that loop, but still coming to the studio and trying to work out my chops and make sure I stay in some kind of creative space. Because to stay away from the studio too long will put me in. That would really keep me in that head of like being wrapped up and involved in what's going on in the world right now. So,
because I wanted to ask, because going back to like 1997, one of my favorite releases from you was the Clavier North, the dark comedy release.
I posted that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible. I always play this track. It's one of those sort of tracks you can play at Panorama Bar Monday morning. It's amazing. And I just there was after that there was a huge gap, right, from release wise from you. I mean, you're really
Yeah.
prolific. Was there a reason why you stopped releasing so much
I
music?
was just busy traveling,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, it's nothing more complicated than that. I didn't move out to LA until 2000. I got here 2 days before 9/11 happened, so 2001, September 9, 2001. So between that, like 98 and 2000, I was just traveling, just touring.
Do you?
And actually, go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, actually, I didn't have this love for gear back in the day. Like I was kind of in the computer then. So then I started getting out of the computer and started collecting all this gear. Then I started getting more into the idea of working on music again.
And
So,
with the Clavier North, I mean, I really loved all the EQing on that track. So can you explain what was your setup back then with that track?
wow.
Because it's all about with that. For me, that track is all about the EQ. It's got these crazy like high pass, low pass.
Did you see the post I made on it yesterday?
No, I have to check.
Okay, so the drums are not an 808. Everybody thought it was an 808. It's actually a 606. And the studio that I had built in the suburb of Detroit, there was another guy who had a studio, and he was doing like jingles for radio and TV. And in the closet, there was a common closet that we both shared. In the closet was this dirty old drum machine on the floor, and I picked it up, and it was a 606.
Wow.
So I was like, "This is yours?" He's like, "Yeah, I bought it in '81. I don't even use it. You can have it." And I actually did the song. That day, Clavius North.
Wow.
So there was a few. There was I think at the time I had I didn't have my head really wrapped around really well technically with regards to compression and how compression works and how much you should apply and how much you shouldn't apply. And okay, we do a style of music that you're not going to be judged by bad technical or producing decisions when it comes to like recording stuff. But actually, like when you do over the top stuff, it kind of lends itself to the track. So that was one of those tracks where I I added a little bit of pitch shift to the drums from an Ensoniq effects processor. I pitched the hats down a little bit lower, and I had an AMEC 9098 EQ and a LA2A. So that pumping that you hear is from the LA2A. And I had an AMEC console, a recording, a big AMEC big console, and I think there was a little bit. They had compression on each channel, but I wasn't too crazy about the compression on the console. So that's what you hear. So it was a really simple track. Like it was a Juno 1 and the 606, and I think it was the DX100. So so that was when it was simple. My setups. Now I have all this shit in here, and I can't get not one thing done. I want it all. How do you want this shit?
Have you had a chance to channel like maybe making some music other than dance music recently through this pandemic?
Bro,
just kind of experimenting with stuff.
I would love to do. So that's why I spent all this money. My people are like, why you spend all that money in your studio? And I ain't gonna mention any names, Dubfire. I'll leave. Why you got all that gear? Like, because I want to like do more stuff. I don't want to just be kind of pigeonholed into like doing just dance music. I want to like work with other artists. That's why I spent all this money on this console and the speakers and the synths. I've been collecting the synths for a few years. But yeah, that one of the reasons is to make this lateral move into doing other styles of music. Because guess what? We're not going to be traveling for a while, buddies. I mean, maybe in Europe y'all are doing it, but like. Thank God I had this to fall back on. Shit, who knows? Like if this shit happens for another year, really?
Kenny, you and I, if you remember, you and I, when I was in LA recording, we were talking like literally every day, and we were making plans to get together in the studio.
Yeah.
When all this went down, I was just sort of wrapping my stuff up. Not really, maybe, because I felt there was too much going on in the world that prevented me from finishing what I'd started. and I needed to escape that. And one of the the escape kind of routes was like working with you, different perspectives, collaboration, and we tried to make it work. And then the COVID thing happened, and then you thought maybe you came down with it, so you're like, bruh, I don't know. Let's wait. And then shit got worse, and I'm like, I can't stay in LA much longer. I'm gonna get out of here, and here we are.
What do you guys think about that? You guys think it's gonna? I don't see us working anytime soon.
I mean, someone's working.
Especially in the U.S.
Not for us in the
that's what I
U.S.
mean.
That's for sure.
No.
Chris is working.
I'm specifically talking about in the U. Of course, I know they're working in Europe, but even there, like it's like extremely limited. Like they only let in a few people. Like,
well, Chris, we I'm sure you listened at the top of the show when we asked.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah,
Chris has had 3 shows, right? 1 in Rome and 2 in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And Chris was just telling us about. He's been having a Twitter war. Twitter discussion.
I don't have any Twitter wars. I have Twitter discussions.
Twitter discussion.
Yeah, I see his tweets. I see him. Yeah. I see him.
You see my tweets?
Yeah, I see your tweets. Yeah, I see them.
So yeah, it's a very interesting time where we're all really conflicted, and there is no right or wrong answer. You're kind of being judged either way. And when we have more people on the show from the club and promoter event kind of side, even some chef friends who moonlight as DJs and stuff like that, I want to get them on because we have to talk about the impact that's having to the entire ecosystem, and how interconnected.
Yeah, but Kenny, how do you see it? What gig would you accept now?
Honestly, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm scared to go into a club. I'm not ready. Not ready.
Oh, definitely not in America.
Touche to that.
I wouldn't be scared to go in any club in America.
Getting on an airplane.
But okay, that's true again. I can drive to my gigs. It's a hard question to say. Imagine you lived in Germany and you would be offered a gig in Stuttgart now, where the cases are super low and everything is super legal. What would you do?
I would probably do it because we all need to make money. But here's one thing that I had to deal with, like right when this shit jumped off, and I don't think anybody's ever talked about it. It's force majeure. You guys know what that is?
Yeah. Act of God. Yeah.
Force majeure. There was a gig I was supposed to do. I had a weekend that was scheduled. I was supposed to play in Georgia, Republic of Georgia, on a Friday, and then I was supposed to go to Hungary the next day. The breakout happened. The people in Georgia canceled a few weeks before the gig, and I was like, okay, whatever. And I had to decide whether or not I was going to still go to Hungary. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go, and maybe it'll be cool, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, the promoter sent the money like a month. He said half the money, like about 3 weeks before. And then he sent the rest like 2 weeks before the gig was supposed to happen. Anyways, they canceled. And I said, okay, well, just got to reschedule. No, we want the money back. And I was like, no, I can't do that because you sent me half the money like a month ago. Motherfucker, I'm paying bills and shit. Like, how is that? Like, how are you expecting me to like just send you the money back? Because nobody's going to be sending money back because, this shit's happened. Nobody knows when they're going to get on the road again. So this huge thing happened online with me and this promoter. And everybody was saying, oh, you're a thief, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, are you serious? So we had to carry this on Facebook where I had to post all the email communications I talked about all the email communication between me and the promoter and about force majeure and about you have to send the money back. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that if you take down all this bullshit that you put online. I said, I'll send you back the money in 4 payments. Take that shit down offline. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. So we had to deal with this whole crazy fucking thing, and it never got solved. And that one of the things that that stuck out with me was the fact that something that I could see his side and I could see my side. But what was the best way to do it? I don't know, because I'm not rich. I don't make a ton of money. So it wasn't possible for me to, because my overhead is pretty high. I can't be just sending money back, especially I said, if you send me half the money, I'm going to send you half back. Like, you can't expect me to to send you the whole fee back and everything be cool and hunky dory. And I got this, bro. I said, we both have to share the ramifications of this, because nobody saw this shit coming. So it was a really, really fucked up thing. This was right when it popped off. So it was I'm a little bit shell shocked right now from that whole situation happening, and doing gigs so close to the COVID thing, and it's still not settled, and it's the COVID thing not being settled, because who knows when we're going to get a vaccine, and what happens if I get a gig and then they go, oh, you know what, we got to cancel because the spike, there's a spike, and then okay, we'll send the money back. Oh man, not again. Like, it's scary to be in that situation.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but we gotta pay bills and gotta eat and shit. So, the longer it goes, and the scarier it gets. It's a scary. The uncertainty is, I think, the most scariest thing.
I think they're already talking now about cancelling Glastonbury next year.
Yeah,
exactly. 2022, they said.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's happening already, so yeah, it's not looking great.
I sent you guys the graphic from my friend Biff, who books a lot of artists at Glastonbury, and he listed all of the job functions of all the kind of people that are employed at Glastonbury. How many people, an event not happening affects, and it's insane for a festival. It's crazy. A lot of people don't think about that.
I think large gatherings are impossible to do, but isn't that the time now for small and little clubs? But saying that, you don't really,
no, bro. That's the worst part.
In the US,
And the thing is living here in the States, I don't know. I can't really comment about what's going on in Europe and what's safe and what's not safe. I can only speak for where I'm at, what I'm seeing going on around me, and I don't know. We've seen this tons of times where people have already in LA have tried to pop up and do underground events and do stuff, and it's just, this country is so completely fucked that I don't think we're in any position to even think about going back to events or doing anything. And there's so much uncertainty, and I think it's important to set an example, to kind of take the role and lead, because so many people look up to DJs and what they do. And I think if we're carelessly just taking gigs in the US, I'll just speak for, then you're kind of sending a wrong message to everybody else. And it really doesn't matter whether you believe if this pandemic is real, or if the threat is real, or if it's some Bill Gates 5G conspiracy. I don't give a shit. At the end of the day, everything has been politicized so highly that optics plays a big role, and it's just not a good time to do an event, period, because even bringing the wrong eyes on doing events and bringing more restrictions on doing parties. Now, like LA has announced, if they catch you throwing an illegal party in your house, they're going to shut the water off in your house.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I mean, everyone's hurting. We're all hurting. So many people in the industry are hurting, but honestly, I don't ever see this coming back at all unless we take a step back and kind of plan for the future and hopefully make things a safer situation for us.
The irony of that, the thing about it that I've been reading a lot about lately is, like, we may, when things resume, we may have any industry to come back to. There might be, like, all the venues that we love playing at might be shut.
Where there's a will, there's a way, though. I mean, if everything's gone, we have to start it back up. We started from nothing. I guess we can re-kickstart it from nothing.
Yeah, but
that'll take time.
But isn't it exactly that the case? I mean, we're not talking about the USA, because I wouldn't touch foot in USA right now. It would be too dangerous. But especially talking about this, isn't let's say the Switzerland model a good model, to have clubs up to 300 people, have them survive, have them run, and have something for the people to go out and enjoy. And that's what I've noticed last week in Switzerland. I've noticed it's kind of like yeah, it's a relatively normal life, but they
Chris,
still
Chris-
live with.
Chris, you played in a very, Lausanne is a very small, it's almost like it's a town. It's not a city, is it? And then Zurich,
It is a city. It's
A
like
little
Zurich,
little lake
essentially.
town.
Yeah.
it's pretty
A
small.
little.
Though. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I don't think these kind of things are possible in cities like Berlin because there's just so much traffic.
No,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely not. And that's why I think isn't that the time for small little clubs, more or less in remote areas? That's
do you
like
think-
where people should go.
But do you think the small clubs in any city that open at minimum capacity are going to survive on that money? I feel like probably not.
No.
They're Swiss. I guess in Switzerland they got money.
I mean, yeah, even then, like, I mean, no matter what city, if you're in London or Berlin or
Yeah.
something, they're like, okay, you can open, but you can only have 200 people. It's like, okay, this club holds 1,500. How are they going to survive?
It definitely depends on the size of the club, you know. But you can choose what kind of limits you put on the people, judging by the amount of cases in the area and infection rates and stuff like this, you know.
Right. But then,
Yeah, I guess
obviously the smaller capacity, then they have to pay more to get in, and then people are probably not as working as much as they're used to. So, are they going to be able to pay that? Or?
I don't think it's a one size fits all. It's case by case. Like some people,
Yeah,
it would cost them, they would lose money by opening at limited capacity, and others, maybe their overhead is so low that they're able to, navigate through this difficult period by opening even at limited capacity.
Yeah, true.
So it's
So,
not-
anyways, what do you guys want to do when you grow up? Because this is some very shit.
I'm going to be an insurance salesman.
I'm going into the TV repair business because
Actually, Kenny, this is a good segue because I'm really curious about the comedy thing. Like,
here we go.
you moved to LA. I mean, there's a comedy scene in LA and there's New York. Kind of like, why was LA more for the music or was it for both?
LA was for the weather. I was thinking the winters and stuff. So I chose LA because you eventually, if you're trying to get into quote movies, you have to go to LA, right? So that's what my goal was to do. So when I got here, I actually started doing comedy, and there was a comedy course being offered by this famous comedian that I took up, and I didn't take it because I wanted to learn how to be funny. I took it up because at the end of this course, they were videotaping you at the Improv, which is one of the better clubs here, and then I was saying to myself, I could take that video and then shop it around to other comedy clubs and get show. So that's exactly what I did. So I was actually getting showcases at the Laugh Factory.
I saw you at the Laugh Factory myself.
Are you serious?
Yeah. When I heard Kenny Larkin was on the bill, I was like, I got to see this shit.
Wow. So, and the only thing that stopped me from doing it was from pursuing it nonstop is because comedy wasn't paying bills. It was the music that was paying bills. So like I had to go on the road all the time. And so that really kind of messed up everything because you have to be in LA to pursue this stuff nonstop. And so the owner of the Laugh Factory, his name is Jamie, he kind of takes you under his wing if he thinks you're coming up really well. And that's what I was doing. But like I had to pay the money, I paid the bills. So, on the road again. So it kind of just stop-start shit. It's not a good thing to have because it would take forever. So I'm like in the situation where I would love to get back to comedy, but somehow I want to bridge the two together. And with the popularity of like social media and whatever, it's easier to kind of bring the two together and not have to feel like you have to go to a club. There's a lot of people that are getting quote famous online without even stepping foot in the club, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think Butch has a nice balance of comedy. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. He's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I see his stuff sometimes. Yeah, for sure.
I think he's one of those guys where he's a great musician, obviously, but he should maybe go into comedy.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Kenny, how many comedy gigs did you do?
Kenny, tell everyone the story that you told me about the one time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I haven't done a lot of comedy gigs. Maybe 7 or 8, and that's crazy. That's crazy low. But I'm gonna tell you what happened to me.
I'm happy I caught one.
I started getting these gigs and I wasn't ready for them. Like it usually takes a while for you to get showcases, especially at the Laugh Factory, because that's the biggest club here in LA. And that's everybody wants to get in there. So you only can get showcases once every 6 weeks. So it's really like a coveted thing. And the first time I did a showcase at the Laugh Factory, the owner, Jamie, was like, "You're amazing. Keep doing this. You'll easily make it." So he kept giving me these showcases and I would do them. And he kept giving me this encouragement. And then one time after that, I got a gig at the same club on a Sunday night, and it was called Chocolate Sunday. And that's a really popular black night where all the comics are black, and it's like this black humor thing. And my set wasn't like geared towards black people. It's like everybody. It's for everybody. And that was the last time that I was on the stage. And it was the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me. It was completely packed with, people, mainly black people. And the headliner was these famous comics. And I opened up. And I got on stage and I fucking froze. I froze. I forgot my set. And there was like straight up silence for, I don't know, it felt like 2 minutes. It was probably 30 seconds. I don't know I had a brain for, it was like time had stopped. And I started sweating bullets. Like my whole fucking shirt was like drenched in sweat. And then I finally caught myself, remembered my set, and then I started, but it was too late. So when I got off the stage, the comic who was the host, he was like, "Y'all got to give it up. This shit is really, really hard." And they kind of politely gave it up. And that knocked me off my shit. That knocked me off my ass. And I used this excuse like, "Well, fuck y'all. I'm going to Paris tomorrow anyway." Like I had that to fall back on. And so I had never been on stage since then. That's what,
Wow.
and that actually happens to a lot of comics where they forget their shit. But if you're a professional, like actually I saw Jerry Seinfeld, he did a documentary on he forgot his shit on stage, but he's such a pro that he was able to kind of do this ad-lib thing until he remembered where he was. With me, I had gone so fast and came up so fast that all these people, it was insane how packed it was. I froze. And it was all because I didn't pay my dues and work out my whole routine in the clubs and came up like normal people came up. It's supposed to take you a while to get to that position where you like getting gigs like that in those kind of time slots with those other comics. And so I wasn't ready for the
how are gigs like this compared to DJ gigs then?
Yeah, like Kenny, does this like when you clear a floor at a DJ
Right.
gig?
Is that like when the record runs out, you don't know what to play next?
Does it trigger memories of stuff like this that happens when you're a comic? Is it
there is no comparing doing comedy to DJing or to doing anything else. I've had one of my friends was she used to be on a TV show, Felicity. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Felicity.
I remember
it was
it,
a pretty popular. She came to see me at one of these showcases, and it was a really good show. And she said, "I could never do to do that on stage because it's that hard for you to bare your soul and to tell a joke that you've been working on for God knows how long, and for them to not laugh, but you got to keep your shit together and go to the next joke and keep your whole wits about you and act as if nothing happened and do the next joke. That's way harder than like fucking clearing the floor at a club. I don't give. Yeah, to me, honestly, part of the fun for me as a DJ is having some people walk off the floor, because if you're not pushing them and playing stuff that's a little bit outside of what they're used to hearing, then you're not doing your job. That's just me. That's just my opinion. Like, I like to go up and down with my sets and play some stuff that they might not be used to, and that's gonna make you lose a few people. But it compares nothing to like people not getting your joke, and you say to yourself, "Wait a minute, this fucking worked last night at the club. Why come it ain't working with these people? This is gold, baby. This joke is gold," and they don't get it. They're like, "Motherfucker, you ain't funny."
Well,
And
it's like
wow.
DJs playing one set in a particular country, and then the next night, they maybe you had a really good set, you save the playlist, and you're like, oh, I'm
Right.
just
And it
chill,
doesn't work.
and
It'll work.
play this set from last night because it works so well, and it doesn't work at all,
Yeah.
and you're like sweating. You're like, wow.
It's interesting that you were saying that nothing compares, but I've always, because I follow a lot of comedians. I know David does too. We watch a lot of shows, but I've always felt like there's a lot of similarities between DJs and comedians on the business side in terms of like booking,
travel, and
constantly playing gigs and flying to different cities and sleeping in hotels and waking up. I mean, you hear like stories that comedians talk about on the road, and you can kind of identify with them as a DJ. And it seems like there's two completely unique worlds that are kind of similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but that's behind the scenes. That ain't on the fucking
of
stage.
course,
bruh.
of course, yeah.
I mean, so you go to fucking see a Broadway play, and you're reciting these lines, and the crowd isn't getting it.
Mhm.
You don't give a fuck. You didn't write it. You're just reciting the script.
Yeah.
Comedy, that is your fucking. That's your soul. You're bearing your soul. You are exposing yourself and saying, "This is what I think is funny. Don't you think it's funny too?" And they're going, "No, that shit ain't funny. What the fuck?" So and then you're going, "Really?" And then you go into the next joke, and then they don't laugh, and then the next joke, and then that's some scary shit. And then you got to walk off and shake that shit off and get on stage the next day and put yourself in that same position. And I don't have a phobia of being in front of people. I don't. That's not. A lot of people have a phobia of being in front of people. I don't. I can do that, but it's like you still have to develop that muscle to where you can say a joke or forget something and ad lib and go, okay, this is where I was, and then keep going, and then you have your flow, and then you finish, and then okay, that could have been a little bit tighter, but I'll get them tomorrow. So if I got back on the horse the next day, I would have never stopped. But because I had this like, ooh, I'm going to Paris, I don't give a fuck, I was able to like blow it off, and and the funny thing is that comedy is my number one love. That's the funny thing, that even though I love music hard as fuck, it's comedy that really like, because you get so much payback from the art. Like if they're laughing, if you got them, you have them, and it's because of something you did personally.
Yeah.
You wrote the joke, you put the labor and the sweat tears in, and it's paying off by them just giving you the.
Well, I'll say from the show that I saw you play, it seemed like you were professional 100%. I mean, you totally had control of the room. So I think you need to get back up on the horse and keep doing this.
I would love to. Yeah, I would. But
you're planning.
But guess what?
On stage? You're planning.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love
to.
But the comedy clubs are no different than a normal club. Like it's the same concerns about the COVID. It's a small club. You can't be sitting and everybody's laughing and there's droplets. It's the same situation.
Maybe a podcast.
That's what all the comedians are doing now. Is podcasts.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure. But they have
the
improv
are also the improv. I saw they're. I mean, for the comedians that are able to cope with no audience and doing a live streamed comedy routine. I mean, how do you do that without an audience? You need an audience.
Yeah, you need the interaction. You got to have that feedback, right?
Even Chappelle when he came out and did it was like 10 minutes or something like that. It was really, really powerful. And I think he used that platform to say something that needed to be said. But even he was saying and he had some people there. But he was
talking about the one where he was outside and he had the people like he was like 8 minutes.
The thing that was COVID in Ohio.
Yeah, that was some powerful shit. Yeah. I saw that.
So that felt that felt like him getting stuff off his chest rather than doing a routine.
Yeah, and that's what it was, because people were wondering why he wasn't saying anything and why he didn't respond to, and everybody was like, "Where's Dave? Why isn't he saying?" He was like, I needed to like figure this shit out first before I could say something. And he went for it then, right? After he said, "Yo, my bad," but 8 minutes, fucking. So then he went, and then but like people like that, they're already baked in as an amazing comic. So yeah, they can do podcasts. But for people coming up, I'm lucky because I have a fan base, and I can say, "Yo, I'm doing comedy now. Come on along on the ride and see me go from here to here." I had that, but it's still, I got to figure out a way to do it. But I definitely would love to do it. but I don't think that's gonna make money right now. We need to figure out how to make some fucking money.
Those sponsors.
TV repairman.
Yeah, that's right. That's where the money is.
How
You
long?
gotta
how long was
release
it?
more music on Spotify. Yeah, you can't wait
Oh
4
my
years.
God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's isn't that what the guy said?
That's
Yeah,
what
what,
they
yeah.
said.
what do you guys? Somebody just asked the question. Zan
You
Abid.
got to put out more music.
Yeah. What do you guys
Yeah.
think
It's
of
Give the
Spotify
music,
video
give the
commenting on
music
how
to
much?
Spotify.
Yeah.
And then we get that percentage, that fraction of a cent for every stream.
Kenny,
Sad.
you don't happen to have like a 20-minute comedy routine that we could watch now while we lean back?
No, there's a small little clip on my Instagram page.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Yeah,
on
I'm at the-
YouTube at all.
Can we
No,
see
no.
something somewhere?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube. It's a small
It's
little
really good.
3 minutes. But and the story behind that's that class I took. I was telling you about where at the end they recorded us at the Improv. So that particular gig was the first time I was on stage in 17 years.
Wow.
So because I had been doing comedy in Detroit before, 17 years prior to that. And then I said, when I got to LA, I was like, let me get back into the comedy. And then I took the course. It was like, I don't know, 6 weeks. And then that particular performance was after 17 years. So like, it's cheeky and it's like silly, stupid humor. But, fast forward when I was doing the stuff at the Laugh Factory, it's a little bit different than that. So, you have to, as a comic, it takes a minute to develop your persona, your shtick, whatever you want to call it. So what you see on the Instagram feed is not really my shtick. It's just almost like a springboard, if you want to say that. So, but it's there. You can check it out. It's there.
What does a comedy class teach you? Is it to teach you how to get on stage? It doesn't teach you how to be funny, I'm assuming.
No, because you have to have that natural sense. It's more about timing.
Okay.
Like you can tell a joke and step on the joke. Like if people are laughing, if you have a joke and it's like, you say a setup and then the punchline, and sometimes you can say the joke and then the punchline. It could be 3 different things that you say at the punchline. But if you're trying to get through those really quick and people are laughing and you're not pausing and giving them a chance to laugh, they won't hear all those 3
Yeah.
things that you just said. So there's a technique that you have to, a rhythm that you have to develop. And a lot of people, honestly, I didn't need the class. That's my point. I didn't really need the class. It was the tool that I was going to be able to get at the end of this class that I could be able to take and to these other clubs and get, and it worked. And it was probably not the best thing because, like I said, I went too fast. And the guy was like, the owner of the Laugh Factory was like, how long have you been doing this? And I said, I just started. And he was like, really? You said you would definitely make it. If you keep doing it, you will easily make it. And I was like, oh, great. So that kind of puffed me up a little bit. And that allowed me to, I should have said no to the gig that I failed at on Chocolate Sundays, but I thought I could handle it. And if you don't practice just like anything else, you're gonna fail. It's gonna, that was some humiliating shit. I couldn't believe how terrifying that was the scariest moment. That was more scary than being shot. And I am not kidding.
Oh wow.
The shooting took a microsecond, and I felt the pain, and I ran to the door, shut the door. That was like 5 seconds. Just imagine standing on stage like 30 seconds, complete shock and horror. All these black people looking at you like, you better be funny, motherfucker. Why you ain't saying that? And everybody just looking at you waiting, and like with the attitudes, that kind of thing. And nothing coming out. And then you going, oh, this is what I was going, and it was too late. They were like, Papa, get off the stage. Anyways, give it up for my man. This is some hard shit. My man, work on that shit. Right. So that's some scary shit.
So I was when I was in LA, I went to see my friend Maz Jobrani. Every time I'm in LA, I message him and he's like, I'm going to be at the Laugh Factory, a Comedy Store, whatever, and I'll pop in. And I was there March 6th, I think. That was the last time I was in a comedy club. It was Chris D'Elia, him, and a few other people lying around the block.
I did stand up with Michael Richards one time.
Really? Michael Richards? Whoa.
Kramer.
Kramer.
Yeah.
Was this before or after what he did?
It was before. It was
Okay.
right. It was a little bit before he did that, and he was fucking Kramer at this club. I'm talking about backstage. It was a few of us. We were at the Improv, and it was me and my other buddy from Chicago and Kramer hanging out. And he was like, it was like a fucking sign for that. He was like, "This is the life, huh? We're fucking doing comedy." I was like, "Oh my God, I'm hanging out with Kramer," and he got on stage and he bombed. He was doing this. He was doing this. This technique where you kind of go in the moment, and it just didn't work. He was just trying. He was experimenting, and it just didn't work. And he was on stage for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and hardly anybody laughed. And that was it. And he didn't care because he had been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
Right. So it didn't. He just kind of brushed it off, and then he did that shit at the Laugh Factory. That's where he yelled that shit at the Laugh Factory. That's where he did it.
But is it not more normal for a comedian to bomb? So you deal with it.
Well, you have to bomb
in the beginning.
You have to bomb. So it's
Yes.
not like, because as a DJ, I feel if I bomb, my career's over. It's like that crazy.
Well, because you've been doing it for so long.
I still feel like my
felt
career
that
is
also in the first years or in the first days of DJing. But so as a comedian, I'm most likely going to bomb like 30% of my shows I do, or 50% of the shows. But that's part of the business, part of the deal. Is it like that?
The success is in the failures, and that's with everything. Think about it. Like, if you don't fall on your ass and you learn from the shit that you should not do, that you better not do, and it doesn't work, then how do you learn? How do you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
right?
how normal is it that you fall on your ass in the comedy?
Okay, so all these, what are you supposed to? All these talk shows, all these comedians on the talk shows, they take their jokes to the smaller clubs in LA, down the street from like Jay Leno. They all go to these small clubs and they work on these jokes in those clubs. And sometimes they don't laugh. Sometimes they punch up the joke. Sometimes they do laugh and they go, okay, and let me put this word here, that word there, and then they get it perfect. It happens to everybody. That's a normal part of being a comic. Because also when you fail, you develop that thick skin that you need, because you're gonna get heckled. People are gonna be drinking. They're gonna say shit. You got to learn how to deal with that shit. You're not gonna have perfect gigs where everybody's like polite while you tell your jokes. We don't be quiet. Let him tell his jokes. No, you have to. The success is in the failure and how you handle the shit, and then you move on, and then the professionalism comes through that, and then you develop your thing and your talent, and then you go on and you become successful. My problem is, like I said, going way too fast and going from some dude who never did gigs to like a few weeks later doing gigs, opening gigs for these big comics, and it was too much. I just couldn't handle the pressure, and I'm a man. I can admit that shit.
But it's funny, like listening to podcasts from comedians, and they talk about same thing with DJing, like how the people in the crowd, there's a vibe, and sometimes a comedian will go into a crowd where the people are just like, they're open for whatever, and just any joke you tell is going to be great. And then there's like the late night crowd in the comedy clubs where people are wasted, they're tired, and just like you have to try to make them laugh. Same thing with the club. You play a really late set, you're gonna have to try to keep these people entertained, and they're all wasted and just like
Kenny, can you just from what David just said, can you read the room the way we DJs go into a room, and depending on the DJ who's playing before us and how they're killing it, depending on what country we're in, what history we have playing in that country, whatever, do you automatically read the room as a comic in the same way that you do as a DJ?
Well, okay, you're speaking with a non-professional comic, so I'm sure the professional comics, they do read the room. So, but here's the thing: like, you can't read. Well, as an amateur going, coming up, you can't read the room and say, okay, let me adjust my joke, because you already have your set prepared.
You can't adjust the set. Yeah.
Right. Unless you're fucking Jerry Seinfeld, and he knows what his demographic is. He knows, like those people like Kevin Hart, he knows what kind of people come to his shows. So he's going to tailor his set around that. Coming up, no, it's like, I could walk into so you arrive early and you see all the comics before you, and you're like, okay, They liked his humor. My shit should work. And I knew I was in trouble when I walked into the to Chocolate Sundays. I knew I was in fucking trouble because I might be chocolate, but I'm a little nerdy guy from the suburbs of Detroit. I knew my shit wasn't gonna go over like the guys before me because they was going at it with the N-word this and the ghetto shit. Just for lack of a better word. And I was like, oh shit, my shit is not like that. So maybe that freaked me out so much. And the fact that it was so many people in there and it was the stature of this club and what this club, and I just, you talking about a choke, I fucking choked. And it was the scariest thing ever. And so, that was a hard lesson to learn. You could get if success comes too quick, you better be ready for it. It wasn't like, maybe if I was a mid-level comic coming up and, the word got out that this guy, he fucked up and don't book him. No, it wasn't that because I hadn't even been on nobody's radar yet. I'm not like, I wasn't in the mouths of all these talent scouts or whatever. So, that's the cool thing. I can go back in and people, they wouldn't know like that I did that, but it's nice to share it because, as artists, like anything that you do creatively, like you kind of have this soft spot and maybe you're a little bit shy about your shit not working, whatever it might be, your music or painting, people might not like it or jokes and people not getting you. And then you either use it to your advantage or you fucking choke. And I choked.
Have you had similar experiences in music?
No. Music wise, I'm good. But I know I'm a little bit too hard on myself regarding the music. Like once it's finished and once I give it away, if it's a remix, especially the remixes, people ask me to do remixes and they expect a certain sound from me, like whatever that is, the Kenny, whatever that is, they expect that from me. And then depending on the track, I'll give them what I think, whatever mood I'm in. And sometimes it might be for the dance floor, and sometimes it might be some weird, eclectic, cerebral shit. But I'm still comfortable with it because I spent so much time with it that I've said, okay, this is what it is. Like if you don't like it, sorry. And Matt, I did that remix for Matt years ago, and normally it takes me, bro, I probably wrote 20 albums on all my remixes because I do so many different versions of a remix. Like, I'll start in Ableton, work maybe an hour or two, save it, and then try another direction, and then try. And so I do that 15 times, and sometimes it takes a short amount of time. For instance, that LaFleur remix I did that shit in like 2 hours.
Wow.
It was literally probably 2, but she gave me the track and I kind of dabbled around with it. And I was like, and then she told me like, yo, please finish it. And I was like, I'm actually going to Europe in a few hours. And she had to go to the hospital for something. I forgot what it was. And she said, please finish. And I had 2 hours to finish that track. And I literally knocked it out in 2 hours. But other tracks like yours, Matt, took me forever to come up with that. So I'm always looking for this special something that's going to make the track stand out. And for that track I did with yours, it was that
you killed it.
that riff thing. So yeah. So I can kind of puff my chest out with my music, and it might not be the biggest, the top 10, whatever, but I'm still proud of it. DJing is another thing too. Like you said, you can come behind a DJ who's been, fucking everybody's ears with this poundy shit, and then I come trying to make love to the people with my sound. I'm gonna start slow, and then I'm gonna work my way up, and then I lose them, and it's like, oh, okay, well, and you try not to take it serious, but you're like, damn, I shouldn't have went that direction. So yeah, but music wise, I'm a little bit more confident once I finish something, but before I finish, I'm just as insecure as everybody else. Yeah.
Wow. The success is in the failure. That that's how I'm going to remember this episode. Thank you so much for being on there. I think these are words that we all know, but you know, especially for the younger people coming up, it's definitely words of wisdom that they should absorb and remember. So thank you for being on the show, Kenny.
Yeah,
It was
thank you.
fun, man. That was really
A
fun.
lot of stories. Like there was so much other stuff I wanted to ask you about. The
I feel
future
like we can
remix.
keep going.
I actually did have another question.
Yeah,
Like
of course you did.
from a personal point of view, like your first show in Germany, and how did you feel about it, and where
Oh, I don't remember. That's a quick answer. I don't remember.
That's a quick answer. Perfect. Good night, everyone. That was our show.
Thanks for coming. Wow.
No, seriously, Kenny, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. It's amazing to hear all these stories.
Yeah.
After all these years, it's fun to hear more and learn more about you from first
I'm
hand.
just getting started. I'm exercising my music muscles, and hopefully I'll have way more music than I had in the past. So stay tuned.
It's a shame that we live in the same city and we never get a chance.
And
to
we never
hang out
see each
more
other.
often, man.
I know, right? That's your fault, bro. That is your fucking fault.
We should make this happen. We'll just nerd out on some
For
gear
sure.
when it's safe.
Can I
sure.
come and visit next time?
Bro, the invitation is open to all my buddies to come. If you come to LA and anybody wants to come into the studio and hang out, I extend that to anybody that I know in the business. Of course, I would love to open. That's one of the things. I need to open myself up to creating, to being creative with other artists, and I'm totally open with that. So anytime you guys are in LA, of course, hit me up. For
I
sure.
want to come play with that Deckard's Dream.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Oh, the
okay.
Black Corporation thing.
The Black Corporation. How about the Moog One? That's a good one. And
That's
then
a good
this
one.
new, since I'm doing the sounds on, it's pretty fantastic too.
Nice.
I'm not gonna say anything else about it, but anyways, okay. It was a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, man.
Thank
Thank you,
Cheers.
Kenny. Thanks everyone for watching. Next week we don't have a guest. We're gonna take your questions. So
We're gonna talk shit. And
Oh, cheers, guys.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Cheers.
peace out, everybody. Ciao.
Ciao.